A very good afternoon, everyone. Let's begin our fireside chat on rebooting Indian startup ecosystems post-COVID. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Ms. Vani Kola, Managing Director, Kalaari Capital, and another big welcome to our moderator, Mr. Deep Kalra, Founder and Group Executive Chairman, Make My Trip. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will address a selected few at the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Kalra.
Yeah, thanks, Aparna. And I am totally delighted to host Vani, who is a dear friend. But more importantly, I think for all of you, Vani is truly, I think, the first lady of the Indian internet ecosystem, definitely for investing. For those of you who don't know, she's been a serial entrepreneur in the past, multiple successful companies built in Silicon Valley. And then Vani chose to come to India, I think for personal and probably business reasons both, and has had tremendous success with her first two funds at Kalaari, and she's on to her third now. More importantly for me, I've had the pleasure of working with Vani, putting together the India Internet Day, I think now a couple of years ago, and it was tremendous, working with you, Vani. Honestly, the fact that you were sitting in Bangalore and the number of trips you made and how connected you were and how you drove that, for me, was actually very inspiring. So I'm really excited to make the most of the 30, 40 minutes we've got. And I've got lots of questions for you. So I'm going to start shooting, Vani, if that's fine with you.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, obviously, we are living in surreal times, unprecedented, surreal, very difficult, almost for everyone, very few businesses doing well. But if we were to really step back and ask you, Vani, what are the few positives, if any, that COVID-19 crisis has thrown up? Are there weaknesses that got exposed by this crisis, which could be potential opportunities for entrepreneurs? Because we have many entrepreneurs tuned in today. So overall, what are the lessons that entrepreneurs should be taking from this crisis from your point of view?
I'd answer that deep in two parts, but before I go into that, just for the audience, right? So they should know we are both in a mutual fan club. I've known Deep for many years, and in fact, I remember very fondly a session like this where I was moderating, and it was about the future of e-commerce, ironically, and having been the pioneer and leader in e-commerce and building the first sort of public $1 billion plus company that Deep did. I'm going to make sure we have a dialogue here because Deep has so much to add to all of us from his learnings and experience and his generosity. He's a great angel investor. For those of the entrepreneurs who don't or might not know that, send your pitches to him, and he's a great mentor. So, but going back to your question, I think both of us share a few philosophies in common. You have seen your share of crisis. I've seen my share of crisis. Of course, none of us have seen the COVID-19 kind of crisis, which is global, which is not isolated, which is both personal from health and financial and all of that. But having said that, I come from a certain viewpoint that every crisis also shows us an opportunity. And so just to think about it in that context, for India, as Deep, there has been such an acceleration of the digital economy. And we have talked about inclusion as a country for so long. And it's not just country in India, I think globally, world over. This has, I think, created consumer behavior change that will persist past the pandemic, and whether that's the way we work to begin with, and look at this conference, right? Here we are collectively with a large group of people and still getting on with our lives and sharing and learning. So whether it's how we work, I think that has changed. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Local will dominate at many levels. I think there's going to be decentralization at many levels over global efficiency. I think we had 3-4 decades of growth that was around a global supply chain and a global ecosystem. I think that will move more and more to local. That will offer new opportunities to entrepreneurs. And I really feel like there is a Bharat inclusion movement here, which is happening. And of course, it'll translate into different sectors in different ways. Deep, we have both been also involved in ACT, the Action COVID team that the startup ecosystem came together to put together. And when I see the solutions coming out of there, of course, that's in the non-profit world and it's for health, but technology is at the center of it, right? And something we couldn't have imagined just 3 months ago when we were beginning to put that together. Wasn't even exactly 3 months, less than that. So I think there are many opportunities that this will bring for all of us if we sort of can get past the fear of what COVID means to each of us personally.
Yeah, no, that's very useful. And Mani, if we really link it to the other kind of pretty big question around funding and also starting up. So as we know, the river of entrepreneurship flows on, and as it should. And I think this is but a rapid. This is a very tough one. People will negotiate this. Hopefully, many people will negotiate this and seek the opportunities as they should. But what's the advice coming from you, from someone who's actually been very active in the early stage? You've helped grow some companies from literally from ideas very, very early to go all the way. And you have the unique advantage of having seen it all. You've seen it from both sides. So, you've been on the company side, you've been on the investing side. What should startup entrepreneurs be thinking right now? And then also linked to that really about funding. What's the big lesson on funding? It's obviously going to be much tougher. Are investors looking at anything at all right now? Is everyone hunkering down? So, talk to us about advice to entrepreneurs from a startup and a funding hat.
I've never believed, Deep, that entrepreneurship is about how do I get to quick success, because that's not entrepreneurship. It may happen. We may all sort of get the lottery, so to speak, sometimes, but that's not what it takes. When I started my company, it had to be bootstrapped for a couple of years. There are believers and there are non-believers, usually non-believers when you just start out. And you have to kind of win that inch by inch by inch, right? And in fact, as you know, I have great respect for how you started, right? So, I mean, you were sort of the pioneer. You and Sanjeev started the internet economy for India, and most wouldn't have believed it. It took time to build up the business, but you did it, and it's the same. And today, I think in some ways, it's a breather, because I think we have been too far on the curve of building companies that at its core has to be around competitiveness through product differentiation at its core, actually driving value to shareholders from profitability in time and so on and so forth, right? So, the unbridled growth, loss making movement, I think today is a setback. And, I'm a builder just like you, and that actually makes me a bit comfortable. Let's build right products, great value, long-term sustainability. Let's build businesses that last for 2 decades or more, right? And not flash in a pan kind of businesses. So I feel that, while there is a funding crunch, entrepreneurs have always faced funding crunch in cycles. Still, great companies have been built. There are countless examples globally. We can talk about what are today $10 billion, $40 billion companies that no investor wanted to invest, right? Yet the founders found a way because they had a conviction of their vision. And I feel if you have a conviction of your vision and core fundamentals together, that it will be okay. Funding will come. I don't think funding is zero. There's plenty of people who want to fund, real companies and real businesses. But I do think that timing matters. Timing does play a crucial role to which kind of a startup can succeed when. In fact, it was one of the mistakes I made when I first moved to India in 2006. I expected 3G, 4G to happen so quickly that most of the mobile businesses we invested in 6 and 7 failed because we were too early to market. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs to do their research, think about where are the tailwinds from trends headed, and then intentionally build, great products. And where is funding today? Obviously, if you're just starting, in fact, you're in a great place. But if you already have a business and need funding, and your growth and unit economics are not very clearly defined, then that's really a tough spot. So, you do what many entrepreneurs before have done. You got to make tough decisions, create a longer runway. Markets will turn around, and you have to sustain today so that you can thrive tomorrow. But I'd like you to add something, because when you started Make My Trip, nobody was believing there was a internet economy that was going to get created in India.
Yeah, no, surely I will. And I think what you said first is very encouraging, Vani. I think this is exactly the advice I would give younger entrepreneurs. And like you said, if you're just starting up, it's easier because your team is probably small. You're still working on building product, whatever it is, and you haven't already ramped up thinking that, listen, one day revenues and commensurate profits will come. So that's okay. The tricky one is when you've maybe taken your angel or series A round, you've been building and you've been going, like you said, on a high growth path, and now you got to shift gears. So my advice to young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs where companies are young rather, is that really you have to hunker down. Guys, there is no question that capital has become scarce. There are very few businesses that are getting, a lot of capital right now, and those are squarely in the sweet spot. So those are probably, I say business. Yeah, exactly. There's some stuff in health. Of course, a lot has been done, which is doing well. There's still some stuff in remote e-learning, in platforms like this, etc. But those are maybe 1 or 2% of the ecosystem. For everyone else, I would say, please hunker down. Please slash away at all costs as much as possible. Variable costs, of course, to do with marketing can be measured very, very minutely if you are going to invest. But the fixed cost is the real issue. And most of us, I think, our most valuable assets in most of our businesses are our people. It's tough. If the team believes in you, this is what we had done way back then when we were hit with 9/11 and dot-com bust in 2001, just a year into starting. I think we were faced with something quite crazy. Of course, it wasn't the pandemic, but it was really hard because there was no funding in sight. And we hunkered down. People who believed took deep cuts. Top people at the top converted all of their cash or whatever they could into equity, which we did for them. And junior people were content by saying, okay, we will kind of move to the next level, get raises only when things get better. But we kept it very transparent. We kept it very open. We were smaller. So, we were 42 people. And I remember we shrunk over that weekend to 24. And I told people, anyone at the senior level has got to take cuts anywhere like between 30 to 50% is what I was expecting. And I knew some people can't take it, and I held no grudge. And I said, listen, it should be the same because, you'll still get other jobs because this was a dot-com bust. So here too, there are many skills that are fungible. Have those conversations, frankly, with people. If they can't, join you for this tough ride, then I think it'll be hard for you to keep paying top salaries, etc. Right now, people should be willing to swap salary into stock, which is delayed gratification, which actually, ironically for us, turned out to be the biggest blessing in disguise for many of my people. So you never know the opportunities that come, but you've got to fundamentally believe yourself and, of course, lead by example. There's just no question. If you're not leading by example, then how can you expect others to follow? So it's a tough time, guys, but I'm a big believer in, what doesn't break you will probably make you stronger. And that's really the motto that you need right now. This is going to hold you in such good stead when you come out on the other side, because most of competition can't take it. So it's a true test. Okay, moving on. So Vani, working remotely is obviously the new normal. Look at us doing this conference seamlessly, and it's great. But will this also impact talent? So will it also mean that now people from smaller towns and smaller places who hitherto could not think about building great companies because of the non-availability of great talent? It was always said that, listen, there's Bangalore, Indian Silicon Valley. Over time, NCR emerged, both Gurgaon, Noida, and Delhi. Bombay's been expensive, but it has some talent. And then beyond that, yes, we've seen great flashes of brilliance from Chennai, from Hyderabad, from Pune, but pretty much that's it. But there's, India is much more than that, and that's our real wealth. Can we expect this to trigger a different sort of movement where you can get talent to work for you remotely, or is that too much to ask for an entrepreneurial venture?
I think it'll depend on us, as in all of us collectively here, on how we use this as an opportunity. For example, I did a poll on LinkedIn asking people, what their preference was about working from home, working from office, a mix of that. Overwhelming 77% of the people said, they would not want a 5 day go through the traffic, get to work, and work from office. They wanted a mix of work from home and work from office, right? Now, I think, first of all, this is a trend that unleashes many things. Opportunity at a tools level, how do we collaborate better? How do we work together better? And we were already on that train, right? Whether it's Slack, whether it is so many tools that have emerged. But we are going to see unleashing of technology that allows all of us to work in this mixed model. But when it comes to companies, I think I read this interview that Sridhar Vembu did, where he wants to pioneer work from home, as in the home could be anywhere, and he wants to kind of build out rural areas from their capability to be trained and work. But I think that's a laudable thought. But it also, and I'm saying that because it depends on the employers, and I think the smart ones will have to find ways in which they use global talent. We know, for example, Eastern Europe is great in sound engineering, for example, right? If you're doing anything with voice, you would want to get somebody from that. If it is design, there are pockets, so pockets of excellence, and you kind of pool that. Now, having said that, how do you make it all come together? How do you make it all work? Is easier said than done. And I think the companies that can pioneer that will probably have a leg up and an advantage. So it's not even just about the major cities, and outside of those cities, can we use talent in India? And the answer is absolutely. But I think the opportunity is bigger than that, from using talent from wherever to build your companies in this fashion. And in fact, I was watching something that Steve Jobs spoke 20 years ago, Deep, and I was really shocked. Sometimes it feels surreal. He said, in 2 decades, most of work will shift to home, right? And 2 decades ago, we would have been like, well, he's just one of those guys that keeps talking, something that we can't yet understand. But today, here we are. So I do think that the availability of talent, which we haven't actually leveraged as well as we could have, that will make you the real leader, the real manager, the real founder. Is not just about technology, but talent. How well can you build a moat with talent will become also what will become fundable.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree with you, and I think it's going to be tricky, but someone's gonna crack it. And like you said, Eastern Europe for sound used to be for mobile because of their colleges, Israel for security. And what I have seen also quite heartening on this is how well our tech and product people today have managed to work and keep it going, aided by some business folks, a lot of the UX folks. So that part of the company is actually quite busy. Yes, motivation tends to sag, so you need to do a lot of sync ups, you need to do a lot of reviews, but people are quite, I would say, now used to working in this fairly comfortable environment, which is your home, without a mask, like I say, without long pants typically, but everyone's very comfortable, and that's fine. In fact, we tried to get people to work on a very voluntary basis. We've done a few, days at work, etc., very small numbers, and we found there are still risks. There are risks around air conditioning. There are risks around the transit, and God forbid people pick up something. Then what happens is you take one step forward and you take many steps back. So my philosophy is, if you can keep work going, please don't expose your people before they need to be, because people won't say it, especially Indians. They'll say, yeah, we can come. But again, it's very likely that someone will get the infection. May not be a very bad bout, but you get the infection means you then freak out everyone who sat remotely close to you. And then you take many steps back. So I think what we are coming around to is post-opening, we might have tag teams too, which is we have some part in office, very similar to what you said. I call it hybrid, which is that maybe we will work on a 4-1 or a 3-2 kind of scenario, which is 3 days at work, 2 days at home, but with some people at work. So, and you have large screens at the end of all bays. So you are even more connected. So you are checked in. It's not like, you're not checked in. You're totally checked in. You're just there virtually. But what you've saved is anywhere between, 2 to 4 hours of frustrating time on the road, which I think is invaluable. If you can give half of it, I even say if you can give 1/3 of it to work, 1/3 of it to self, and 1/3 of it to family, that's a good way of using that extra time. And so that's my view on it. But let's see how it pans out. So we've got a few questions coming in, but I will come to them in a bit. But I just want to acknowledge to the audience we've seen those questions that have come in. So Vani, everyone's asking investors, which are the sectors? We've touched on, we said healthcare, but are there any sectors which we think are going to shine even more post this pandemic, considering the long-term implications? Are any of them favorites for you or for other investors? I think people are quite curious to know that.
I don't know about favorites. I don't have any favorites, but I'll tell you a framework of thinking, and maybe that's of use, right? We already, for example, just talked about work from home, and that opens up a whole set of questions on what are the security products that are going to be needed. And there's enough work already showing that, not enough has been thought about. We can't just do VPN tunneling. Not enough has been thought about how cyber hacking is going to happen in this situation. So a whole slew of products will emerge that make this hybrid work from home possible at many levels, at the system level, at the software level, at the collaboration level, and the HR level. So I think there is a new enterprise, right? And if you think about what has happened from enterprise productivity, every time there is a big shift in technology, whether that is, and I'm just talking enterprise, not even consumer yet, but every time from mainframe to client server to web to social to mobile to today, this hybrid model, multi-billion-dollar companies have been spawned out of those big movements in terms of how an enterprise works. So I think there is a whole new enterprise solutioning that will emerge, and that's interesting. I think the consumer, as much as we had talked about the top 50, 70 million who think very global, who have adapted into this mobile first way of life. But today, whether you look at entertainment, whether you look at education, many aspects have moved online, right? And what are the tools, again, technologies, products, solutions that you can map into to be able to take, and I think we are at such a nascent stage of that. I live 2 kilometers from a really small government school. And today I was talking to them, and they said, we want to teach people online. Can you help us set that up, right? So, this is at a village where no one even has internet. So can you get community internet? And how are you going to do this? And so I think this is happening. This is real, right? And it's not just about education. I think we can see from the rise of social, and I think vernacular will be a very big thing in all of that. I was so used to desktop internet because that's how internet first started. And the mobile first movement was personally for me hard because whatever you are entrenched with, but India adapted to it just great. I'm actually not an early adopter. I'm a laggard because I'm, used to something else, right? In the same way, I think today, the vernacular we have not really thought about at all. What does that really mean? I don't think any of the tools, technologies, the way we have used will be what will take over the next 300, 400 million. They are all online today. So I could go on this. This is a whole topic for all of us. And whether it's gig economy again, is here and is changed. So I think we can drill down to sectors, but before we drill down to sectors, just pick 2 or 3 big trends, tailwinds that are there, and map that down to a sector and a problem to think about where you have an insight to create something unique, right? And to me, when I'm funding, I want to see that thought process. It's not like I am the visionary. It's always the entrepreneur who's the visionary. We are trying to understand what that vision is and see if we can kind of hitch the wagon, so to speak, to their vision and support them. But I want to see the logic of, if we are doing a new funding, to the opportunity you see with this new normal, which is here to stay. And I actually think it's very exciting. I feel, Deep, that, if we look back to this period in 5 6 years, we will have seen the birth of some great companies. We don't know who they are today. It's just like we don't know who's the future leader, prime minister who's born today or something. Companies are the same way. I think we'll see some great companies that are going to be born in the next 12 24 months.
Yeah, no, that's very useful. Let's talk about the bright spot. It's a good segue into the brightest spot for the internet economy right now, which is obviously jaw-breaking in terms of what people are talking about, but what Geo has managed to pull off, right? And obviously, it hasn't happened overnight. Geo has done a ton of work over the last probably 5 6 years getting ready for this. But the kind of numbers, the kind of the partnerships that have been now forged between Geo as well as both Facebook and Google is going to be a force to reckon with. For many entrepreneurs, they can't understand, where they're saying, okay, so does that leave space for anyone else? I, however, do believe that this will throw up many, many opportunities too. This is only going to probably catalyze the ecosystem even further, especially with 5G. So what are these opportunities? And it's linked to the previous question, but very specific to the rise of Geo, along with some of the biggest companies worldwide. And how should entrepreneurs be thinking if they navigate through this and saying, okay, so what's in it for me? Can this be a completely new ecosystem at a very different orbit that I can latch on to, like you said, or I can find an opportunity with? Because if you latch on, probably nothing will happen. But where do I find my spot in the sun out here, so as to say? So just wanted to ask you, because you've been keenly following the space, you know it really well.
I think there are many opportunities. Again, the optimists that we both are, I see also, like you do, that there is plenty of opportunity for, India internet companies to thrive and succeed. Obviously, none of us would necessarily start a search engine company today unless we had some other completely new way to look at it. So you wouldn't start something that head-on takes on a platform, and in the same way, Geo is a platform first and foremost. And, before we tap the next Kirana tech company, so to speak, you would want to take a thoughtful approach to that. But there is one opportunity which has always existed in any large markets, and India has been a bit behind on that: deep tech. Now, if you think about Google acquiring Next for connected home, or Facebook acquiring Oculus, mind you, for billions of dollars. So there is a question of deep tech these platform companies are going to gobble, because they can't get to that particular, I'm going to call it a feature, not as a not to indicate that it's meaningless, but something that's very focused and deep, right? So I think there is definitely deep tech companies which we haven't seen emerge out of India, but I think we will see that, because we have certain product base we have established now, and also we have more and more consumption need for it, right? So at algorithm level, at the AI level, at the NLP level, because we have such complexities in India. So it is not that we can just take nuance or something like that and apply it to India easily. So I think there is a whole deep tech from a platform enablement improvement perspective that will emerge, and I'm actually excited about that, because that's really what venture capital can usually fund. Operationally very complex businesses that guzzle a lot of money, throw up very little profit, those are not actually as suitable necessarily to venture capital funding, so because you have to keep that growth going. So I think deep tech is one area. I also think that what this does more than anything is unleash a platform. Like if you look at Salesforce, which is whatever, worth 140 billion or whatever, but many companies have been built on top of that platform, providing gaps of solutions that the platform doesn't cover. And they're not small solutions. These are, $1, $5, $30 billion companies that have been built, right? So if you think about the entire Geo, Google, Microsoft, Facebook as a platform technology, what can you do to leverage that, bolt on it, to create new value from application that anyway they are not going to get to, and they're not going to be able to get to. So I see scores of companies coming out that can leverage that and build that. And again, in the same areas we have talked about, could be enterprise productivity, could be whatever, right? So on which we can build that. So in the SME space, I see tons of opportunities to build on their platform technology.
Okay, no, that's great. And Vani, specifically, since this is a fintech conference, if we just talk about payments and digital payments, etc., in light of not just Geo, but what all is going on, is that game already done in terms of, I know a lot more will happen and it'll get better, but is it like, is there still a play for a new company thinking, or is it just got too many big people on it? Like, how should players over there be thinking? Or is it back-end technology over there? Is it again an application of deep tech out there and algos out there? Because it seems like a very, very crowded space with some of the biggest names, India and overseas there, and everyone wanting to still make a pie. Or is it applied sectors in payments? So that would be, I think, very relevant for our audience.
For me, very clearly it's applied. I don't think we would want to fund yet another payment company. I think there are enough out there, and anyway, there's no money to be made. There may be big companies, but none of them are really making any money. They themselves are looking to what else can we be doing, taking that transaction volume to add value, right? So, and they're going to explore that. And if you are the value provider, probably there is a very attractive acquisition over time on each of these platforms we are going to see, because they can't remain just payment technology or platform companies. They have to provide value-added services on top of that, no doubt about it. And this is true not just for India. You see globally, that's what, even very successful companies like Square and so many others that started out even with new payment products had to add other value-added services in order for them to be relevant and, valuable to their customers. So I would say, never say never, because there is always a smart entrepreneur who does something, but I wouldn't be too encouraging of creating yet another payment company unless some entrepreneur thought, I can undo everything, turn it on its head. But I think applied, there is so much opportunity. Look at Shopify today. It doesn't matter what payment they use. They're $100 billion company, and they just focus under the nose of Amazon to go after these, small businesses that didn't have an easy platform to build. And like that, I think there are so many other stories. So I would look at what is it that if there is, 100 billion UPI transactions that are happening, what does that really mean when that is happening in terms of what I could do from a value service on top of that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, Shopify is great, Wix on them and others. There's another interesting audience question. A trend of fall in the number of rounds, but rise in investment funding size is being witnessed. The median has increased. What interpretation do you make out of this? And this is for you, Vani.
I really think, Deep, we take one-offs and make them into trends. I think that may be true in some instances, but is not largely true, okay, in my opinion. So I don't think we can develop a broad, thesis or a conclusion out of that. Sometimes companies see very aggressive growth, or they are in such interesting market with a strong first mover advantage, they may be able to skip sort of the traditional path. It's kind of like saying we know a 12-year-old who finished college. I mean, there may be some of them, but most of us go through the regular grind. So I think there is some skipping in some companies, but I don't think that is the norm or the general trend, though it's great if you happen to be the recipient of it.
Sure. No, that's fair, Vani. Vani, there's a question I wanted to ask, which is, and I don't think there's anyone better, and it does bother me. I mean, I really wonder why we don't have more women entrepreneurs in our ecosystem. Of course, off late, it's been better than it used to be. I can speak from 2000 to 2010. It was virtually barren, very, very few. In the last 5 years, probably more. But what's missing? Because it looks like entrepreneur, firstly, our ecosystem's ready. It's getting into the secondary and tertiary areas where I think that we need the extra intelligence that women bring. And I mean it because I think it's more than just IQ in a lot of these where you need EQ. And it could work really, really well. But for some reason, I don't think we get enough. And you must have thought about this a lot because, obviously coming from your own vantage point, seen this in the US, brought it here, or is this a worldwide phenomenon in the internet economy, and we shouldn't worry about it too much? I won't ask you why few in the investing world, because I think that may not even be that relevant. But let's talk about the entrepreneurial world.
I think it is a worldwide phenomena. I don't think we are any worse off. Not that means we shouldn't worry about it. I think we should worry about it. I don't think necessarily India is any worse off than any other countries, but I do think it's worldwide phenomena. And when there are these kind of systemic problems, Deep, unfortunately, there is no one quick fix. That is, we all want kind of like an easy answer, and there isn't an easy answer. In US, for example, Melinda Gates Foundation has a fund to fund managers to fund women entrepreneurs and create that movement, if you will. I don't think it's a lack of women entrepreneurs necessarily, even. I think sometimes the mentoring to scale the businesses, the language contextualization, in how you communicate. Not that there's anything wrong to communicate. It's just that, on the other end, the funders are probably filtering what you say in a very different manner. And so I just think that there is a whole life cycle. What I'd like to see is much more of mentorship and handholding to women entrepreneurs and funding happen. And it always is when there is a path breaker, when the first man goes to Everest, it turns out thousands more can go. Okay. So when we find these women that create out of India the next unicorn, I promise you there will be 10, 20 more that will follow right through. So I think the job in the ecosystem you have, I have, because it's a question that matters to us. You have a daughter, I have two daughters. It matters to us is how do we get that one or two or three companies with great, women leadership to succeed. And then the rest, I think, will follow. It's being the pioneer that's always very hard. I'm not saying there aren't, certain systemic problems. So before we worry about fixing the system, we have to take the few and see what we can do to create that role model, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's great.
We have 20 unicorns today in the country. Not a single of them have, other than Byju's has Divya as the co-founder, but we don't have many of them where it is largely women founded.
Yeah. I think we have some co-founders. It's nice to see, like, comes to mind, and big companies like a company like Rivigo, you've got Ghazal, you have a few, but clearly need more. And I agree with you. We have time only for one more question, just a minute or two left. So very quick take, and perhaps the right one on a closing note. So what are you excited about right now, despite all the doom and gloom all around? Because you're one of the eternal optimists, as you must be. and what should be the key takeaway for our entrepreneurs really to hang in there, to stay motivated? Where is that light at the end of the tunnel?
To me, I'm always energized by how entrepreneurs see problems as opportunities. In our portfolio, for example, Deep, I have a couple of entrepreneurs who have done such hard digital pivots, and it's paying off right now. It is, a hard decision to make, to know whether, because you don't know if it's going to work, if it's going to succeed or not. But to see that, capacity to make these difficult decisions and grow in their personal leadership and take their companies to the next level, that's why we do this job day in and day out, because it's kind of energizing to draw from that and be inspired by it. I'm inspired by what entrepreneurs do every day, and that keeps me motivated and going. So I think, what should entrepreneurs take away? If you're starting a new company, look for those things that can be category creators in the next 5-10 years, and be thoughtful about it and start the right way. Find right co-founders, build it as a frugal company till such time that you can skip those rounds and get that large capital in. But look to create companies that can thrive, sustain, build from strength to strength for next 2-3 decades to come. That's what we need to create from economy enablement also for this country, right? And if you're already running a startup, make the hard decisions so that you have enough runway to be able to create these opportunities for yourself, whether that's a pivot or whether it's waiting for customers to come back, whatever that is, right? So, but make those hard decisions. And if neither of those are possible, then consolidate the companies, right? So make the decisions that are emotionally difficult, because I'm seeing that more than a third, if not half of the companies are not going to survive Deep. And what I don't want any entrepreneur to go through in this country is a bankruptcy process, which is very, very personally difficult and painful, I can assure you. So look for a way that you can at least sell your business. And sometimes the emotion stops you, from making that hard decision here and now.
Yeah. No, I have to thank you, Vani. I think that for me, by the way, every time I speak with you, I get a little extra motivated, even the pre-chat we had 2 days ago. So thank you. And thank you also for your contribution to the ecosystem and the stuff need through ACT. We only touched upon it. We didn't have enough time, but I want everyone to know Vani with a bunch of other really wonderful venture capitalists like Sequoia folks and others have put together.
Absolutely. And others,
and people should read up about it. These are solutions for COVID. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to our host, Aparna. Thank you, Aparna.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deep. I really appreciate you doing this with me. It's been fun, and glad that we got to do this together.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Vani ma'am, and thank you, sir, for being here with us today. I would also like to thank our sponsors, NPCI, Amazon Pay, WhatsApp, Google Pay, and Visa. And a gentle reminder to our delegates, please don't forget to visit our 70+ exhibitor booths to check out their offerings and to rake up your points to win exciting prizes. Thank you so much, everyone.